Welcome. My name is Inay Prakash. I'm a cinema programmer with Maysles Documentary Center. We are a 56-seat cinema and education center in Harlem. Of course, right now, most of our programming is happening online. You can check that out at maysles.org, where you can also donate if you're able to. We try to make as much of our programming as possible free, so that's appreciated if you're able. Today, I'm really, really pleased and honored to be able to present the filmmakers and subjects of a film called Colette, which we premiered on our website on Friday. Hosting the panel with them will be Charlie Phillips, the head of video of The Guardian. Charlie will go ahead and talk to the filmmakers and subjects for the first half hour, and then we'll start taking questions. So if you've got them, please go ahead and enter them into the Q&A box below. And with that said, I will let Charlie take it away. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Cool, thanks, Inay. Hello to everyone out there. So I am head of video at The Guardian, and I run The Guardian documentary strand. And the reason that I am hosting this panel is that we are bringing this film to The Guardian later in the year because we love it so much. And hopefully you out there, I don't know how many of you there are, but hopefully there's lots of you, and hopefully you love this film as much as we do. Yes, as you've heard, we have the filmmakers and the protagonists of the film Colette here. So we have Anthony, the director, Elise, the producer, and perhaps more excitingly, we also have Colette and Lucy, who are the, I suppose, stars of the film. We'll be here for about an hour, maybe slightly less than an hour. And just bear with us a little bit because Colette and Lucy don't speak English so well. So we're going to have to do a bit of translation as we go. So I don't know, at least I don't know if you want to translate anything that I just said.
Let me translate this just in few words for Colette and Lucy. Colette et Lucy, merci. Charlie vient de faire une brève introduction du film pour expliquer que le film va être porté par la plateforme des documentaires de The Guardian, le journal anglais. Et il a présenté chacun d'entre nous, Anthony, moi-même, et évidemment vous deux, Colette et Lucie. Il est très heureux de faire cette présentation parce que au Guardian, ils ont été très émus par le film.
Merci.
Great. So I suppose the first question I had was around the origins of the documentary. And maybe we can start actually with you, Anthony, and Elise, in how you first came across the story and sort of how the film started. And then perhaps we can come to Colette and Lucy to talk about how they met. But maybe we can start with you guys.
Sure. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Charlie, for hosting, and to Maysles, of course, and Colette and Lucy for being here. So, you know, Elise and I were in Normandy, actually, looking at a different story completely about a glider, someone who was landed in a glider the day after D-Day in Normandy. His glider crashed. And so we were there sort of looking at that story, and we had a great tour guide who was taking us around. His name was Christophe Gosselin. And he, just in our conversations, you know, about what we were doing, and he said, you know, there's a woman who was in the French Resistance. Her name is Colette. She lives in Normandy, and you know, she's got a great story. And that is really the first time we heard about Colette. We didn't go too deep into it, but I just said, you know, Christophe, at some point I would love to at least be connected with her, talk with her. Would you introduce us? So it was, you know, we didn't go searching for it. It kind of, in a way, found us, right? And then, you know, over time, because Elise is based in France and Great Britain, Elise sort of started to make the contact. And if you want to pick up anything from that, Elise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would say also is that the first encounter with Colette was over the phone, but it was quite intense. And then afterwards, when we met, we understood why it was intense, because she's an amazing character that you might have discovered in the documentary. So the first thing is that Colette did impress us. Like we were moved by her character, her strengths, but also her own experience, what she brought back from her past to us at the first encounter. And I was telling Anthony about the story of Colette and her brother, Jean-Pierre, and that Jean-Pierre died in Dora. And Anthony said, oh, that's incredible, because I just come back from Dora, where I filmed, and I know the place very well. And that suddenly we thought, oh, but there's something going, like a connection between us all.
Yeah, that was an incredible coincidence, because that summer I had actually been in Dora. You know, I'd never been there before. And then to find out after Elise had spoken with Colette that he had died, that Colette's brother had died in Dora was, I don't know, not really a shock, but kind of like, how did that happen? You know, how is that possible? You know, that we were, that I had been there before.
And then came into our mind that there was that Dora that Anthony knew was a place special in Colette's life. But talking to Colette, we understood that she never went there, and that it was a complex project. And maybe we can ask Colette how she decided to go there.
Yeah, and I know that this, I'm sorry, Charlie, did you want to ask something?
Well, yes, I was going to move to maybe Colette and Lucy now to talk about how they first met, because the feeling we get from the film is that this amazing project of going to the camp sort of happens, yeah. But I'm sure there was a lot of preparation there. Sure. So I'm really interested in knowing the establishment of their relationship, which seems so close.
Yeah. So when we were talking about when Elise and I were talking, you know, we were talking about, like, you know, what could we do with Colette, or would she go back? We first, you know, contacted the foundation at Dora to talk to them about it, you know, to let them know that we have someone we're interested in seeing if she would like to come back. We would like to film with her, but we're not really exactly sure what that would look like. And in that conversation, they said, you know, there's a history professor in a museum in France. They're working on this project. You might want to talk to them. And Elise, I'll let you talk, because you made that connection, right, with La Coupole.
Yes, okay. Colette has gone to collect water. Yeah, La Coupole in Saint-Omer is headed by an historian called Laurent Thierry. And maybe Lucy will talk a bit about him, because he was Lucy's boss at La Coupole. And we were trying to understand what would touch us and what could convince Colette to go back to this place, which is a place of difficulty for her, obviously. So what would make sense for her to bring us onto this, to embark us in this journey? We knew that Colette was convinced that transmission is what she wants to do. And so we thought about connecting her with young people. And we young people, but which young people? And because Dora is connected to La Coupole, because La Coupole was a place that was built to launch the V2 the V2 rockets that were built in Dora. At La Coupole, they have a special bond with Dora. So when I called Dora, they sent me to La Coupole, and when I called La Coupole, Laurent Thierry told me, look, I have someone very special who never went to Dora, to Germany, and who worked on the topic for a couple of years. And we believe that she would be, she had not the occasion to go there, but it would be good for her. So maybe it would be good for your documentary. And this is how we met Lucy and embarked Lucy to the story with Colette. So they actually met Lucy and Colette with us.
Yeah, and I just would just back up for just one thing was that they were also in the process. They had been working on a biographical dictionary of the French deportees to Dora. So it made sense, and so Lucy had been let's say getting her hands sort of dirty and a lot of that work with the research of that. So she made sense for that reason also. She came with a lot of knowledge of the camp and the deportees experience, but I would say it went a bit deeper on this trip.
Great. So over to Colette and Lucy. So you met for this film, and that's quite a lot of pressure, I suppose. It seems from the film like you were immediately very close, and you had this immediate bond. So what was it like first meeting each other and then having sort of a camera watching you?
Je ne vais pas leur dire. La première fois que j'ai rencontré la petite Lucie, j'ai été très touchée par l'investissement que cette gamine, une gamine, a mis dans ses recherches, dans son travail. Et évidemment, elle a le même âge quand je l'ai rencontrée que Jean-Pierre avait quand il est mort. Donc, elle s'est sentie porteur du souvenir. Porteuse, on devrait dire, parce que tout fait bien. Voilà. Donc, et puis en plus, cette petite fille-là, cette très jolie, gentille Lucie, elle est dans la bretelle d'entrée de la vie. Moi, je suis dans la bretelle de sortie. Donc, il faut bien se retrouver toutes les deux sur l'autoroute et passer le message, passer le souvenir. Donc, je suis très reconnaissante, surtout à Alice, parce que sans Alice, je n'aurais jamais accepté d'aller en Allemagne. Je n'ai jamais voulu y aller. Pour des tas de raisons personnelles, ce serait trop long à expliquer. C'est là.
Il faut que tu penses à t'arrêter que je traduise parce que je vais oublier.
Oui.
Colette was saying when she met Lucy for the first time, she was quite moved by meeting this young woman who put so much into the work around the dictionary. She had invested so much in what she was doing. She was delighted to be with a young, pretty girl, but she also said, I know that Lucy is on the entry into the motorway of life and I'm on the exit. So the fact that we could meet together and her investment in the project and in the subject matter, and she was the same age as Jean-Pierre, Colette's brother, when he died. Mm. So all of those things meant that it was quite emotional for Colette to meet her. I don't know if Lucy wants to maybe say something now. Lucy, peut-être à toi.
Moi, quand j'ai rencontré Colette, Alice, je vais aller doucement et je te laisserai traduire entre deux. Quand j'ai rencontré Colette, je pense que c'est un moment que je n'oublierai pas parce que c'était la première fois que je rencontrais une personne, vraiment de près, qui avait vécu pendant la période de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, et c'était la première fois que je rencontrais une résistante, une ancienne résistante. d'autant plus que quand on est parti en Allemagne ensemble, je la connaissais pas depuis, je la connaissais depuis une semaine. Enfin, je l'avais rencontrée à Caen une semaine avant et on a tout de suite été proches. Et Colette, quand elle parle de moi, des fois elle dit que je suis sa petite fille. En fait, je pense que ça montre assez bien le lien qu'il y a entre nous depuis ce voyage.
So Lucy was just saying that she was very moved when she first met Colette, because it was the first time she met a resistant woman and someone who had this experience, and she was very, very interested in what Colette had to say. She was also very much moved by, when they traveled to Germany together, they had met only a week before in Caen. So it was all new for her. It was very fresh, and but yet very, very early, like instantly, when they took when they started the travel, they were very close. And Lucy likes that Colette sometimes talked to her as if she was a granddaughter.
And I would just add, Colette also said that if she took part in the film, it was thanks to Alice, because had Alice not convinced her to take part in the film, she would never have gone to Germany. She had never wanted to return to Germany for lots of personal reasons. And Alice was the one who succeeded in convincing her to do the journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing, because you feel from the film like Colette and Lucy have known each other for years. So that's quite wonderful.
It's our work also. Filmmakers.
Yeah. So just obviously you went to Germany. Sorry, this is for Colette and Lucy. You went to Germany and you went to the camp, and that's a very intense personal experience. And watching the film, it feels like you're not even aware that there's a camera watching you. It's very it's very free, it's very intimate. Did you forget that the camera was there? How did that feel?
Non, je l'ai très vite oublié.
Yeah, Colette said she very quickly forgot the camera was there. Very quickly.
C'est difficile à expliquer parce que,
It's hard to explain.
en commençant par Alice, qui a été vraiment merveilleuse, sans elle, je ne serais jamais rentrée dans ce cycle-là. Mais à partir du moment où je me suis retrouvée dans toute l'équipe, j'ai été entourée de tellement de gentillesse, tellement de chaleur, que je ne faisais absolument pas attention à une caméra.
She's saying as she said, it was because thanks to Alice that she agreed to take part. But once she got to know the members of the team that worked with her, she felt as if she was surrounded by so much kindness and empathy that she forgot she was being filmed.
J'avais plutôt peur que la petite gamine ne tienne pas le coup, parce que c'était très, très dur à supporter, et elle aussi, une fois ou deux, a fondu en larmes. Et j'avais un peu de soucis parce que j'ai le cuir solide, moi, mais la petite, elle est tout de même très jeune.
She also said she was very worried about Lucy a lot of the time, because she said it was a very emotional and an intense experience, and Lucy dissolved into tears on a couple of occasions because of the force of the emotions that they were experiencing. And Colette says, you know, I'm a hardy old lady. She's just a young girl being faced with all of that Colette's kind of had her life to get used to, I guess. And so she was very anxious about Lucy and how she was.
Lucie, Charlie demandait. Oui,
Ouais,
Charlie.
du coup, pour moi, c'est un peu le contraire de Colette, parce que c'était la première fois que j'avais une caméra comme ça devant moi. J'ai pas eu des milliers d'interviews avant, ou j'ai pas fait des milliers de documentaires avant. C'était le premier documentaire. Et donc, du coup, la caméra, je la sentais. Et je me rappelle, Alice, plusieurs fois, elle m'a dit de nombreuses fois, Lucie, regarde pas la caméra. Elle me faisait des gestes comme ça pour que j'essaye de regarder ailleurs, parce qu'il fallait pas que je regarde la caméra. Et puis, quand Colette, elle a évoqué les moments où j'ai fondu en larmes, je pleurais et la caméra continuait de filmer, mais j'arrivais plus à parler. Il n'y avait plus aucun mot qui sortait, mais il y avait quand même la caméra. Donc, la caméra, elle a été toujours là. Et je me rappelle même, la seule fois où on a pu regarder la caméra, c'est pour le générique de fin. Et j'ai dit, ah, on peut regarder la caméra pour une fois. Et voilà.
Lucie, laisse-moi traduire donc. So Lucy says it's funny. It's the opposite, the contrary. She has a very completely different experience from Colette, because on the contrary, Lucy felt the camera always felt the camera. She says maybe it's a matter of experience. For Lucy, it was her first documentary, first interview, whereas for Colette, she had the experience of interviews already. And but for Lucy, it was. For example, while being filmed, she wanted to watch the camera. So she says, like, for example, we was telling her, look, don't watch the camera, but watch Colette, or just pretend the camera doesn't exist. And for Lucy, it was not easy. And it was not easy either. It was also the case that sometimes when she was overwhelmed by the emotion, she was crying, and she was not crying, but overwhelmed, and she could not speak a word anymore. But still, she could feel the camera. So she was wondering how to proceed with this. And but at the end, she was happy to be able to watch the camera during the credits phase.
Cool.
Could I just say, Charlie, do you mind? Could I just say something? Elise just mentioned the credit, the shot in the credit where it's sort of this slow push into Colette, Lucy, and holding the picture of Jean-Pierre. I just want it to be known that Colette herself directed that shot. And I say that because I think it also speaks to sort of how close the crew became with the subjects also, that she really also became part of the crew in a way, right? Because we would always have dinners together. We were doing stuff together, but she felt comfortable enough to direct that last shot. So that is Colette's work herself.
Cool. Well, it's a beautiful shot. And actually, while you're talking, Anthony, just to sort of go on that line of thinking to you, like you managed to achieve this amazing intimacy where everyone feels comfortable with you filming. Were you surprised by how sort of natural, I suppose, Colette and Lucy were on camera? Tell me how that felt for you.
Yeah, I think so a little, because you never know how this is going to turn out. I mean, we are really putting two people together, from different experiences, in terms of generations. You really don't have any idea how it's all going to play out. And I knew also that there was resistance, Colette's whole life, that she never really wanted to go to this place. So part of you is like, okay, so, well, I'll just be clear that you could never force Colette to do anything, for sure. So obviously she made that choice, but still you do, wonder how it's going to play out. I agree, the first meeting where you see them at Colette's home and they're talking, that is the first time that they ever met. But when we were on the train, it just felt so natural. It really felt natural for them, and we just sort of went with it. And for me, it's just important, off camera, when you're doing stuff like this, is almost as important as on camera, to sort of have a sense of community. with the crew and with the subjects as much as they want. And I think we really tried to do that, over the time that we were together. And I'm sure that contributed, also, from, our set photographer to behind the scenes audio, everybody became very close during this experience. And I think that's a real, for me anyway, an important part of the filmmaking process. That you make sure that people understand who are working on this, that we want everybody involved on every level of this.
Great.
If I can just add, Colette has just said to me on off when Anthony was speaking, I was explaining to her what Anthony was saying, and she just said to me, yes, they were all like it was just as if I was with my kids. So I felt that every member of the team was one of my kids. So that's how she's experienced it.
Wow, that's really lovely, and that makes sense that the film has this sense of real closeness. So that's really wonderful to hear. We've got we could go to some audience questions now. If you do have a question, then please type it into the Q&A box, and I'll be able to see it. But we've also got a question from on the chat, which I think is a good question actually to ask now, which is that outside the crematorium, when Colette cries and then says, I never normally cry, but I'm crying for all the years to come. And Chris Brandt in our audience has said, what did Colette mean by that when she says that she's crying for all the years to come? Maybe she could elaborate on that.
Et on n'a pas assez de larmes à verser devant c'était la fin de l'horreur. Le crématorium, ça a été la fin du parcours ou presque. Et oui, j'ai eu un malaise d'ailleurs, mais c'était accumulé. J'ai pas beaucoup pleuré dans ma vie, j'ai pas eu le temps de pleurer. Mais c'est vrai que là, j'ai pleuré, je pense plus avoir l'occasion, que quelqu'un me donne l'occasion de me faire pleurer maintenant, enfin j'espère, à 92 ans, de ne plus avoir l'occasion de pleurer. Donc ce jour-là, c'est vrai, et c'est pendant ces jours-là passés à Dora, c'est vrai que j'ai beaucoup pleuré, mais je souhaite que j'ai pleuré pour le restant de mes jours.
So what she meant by that was she hasn't cried a lot during her life. She was saying to me earlier on off that her mother had always told her she had to face things and she had to stand up straight and face things. So she hadn't cried a lot during her life. And she guessed that by the time you got to the crematorium, you were getting towards the end of the visit. And I think all the emotion which had been brought to the fore up and to that point, and which possibly she'd held back, she allowed herself to cry. And she said she cried quite a lot during that visit to Dora, and she cried sufficiently, she hopes, for the rest of her life, because she says there's never enough tears to show the emotions that you could feel having visited those sites and thinking about all the horrors that took place there. There are not enough tears to be able to compare with the level of horror that the people who were there experienced. And so she feels that she cried a lot there, yes. She hadn't cried much in her life until then, and she hopes that she will never have to feel the need to cry as much again. So that's why she was saying she'd cried enough for the rest of her life.
Thank you. That's a very beautiful sentiment. Yeah, we'll go to a question from Mark Dawley in the audience, who's asked a few, and I think we've answered some of them. But I think the one that might be interesting to talk about, and this is for everyone really, is what do you think about the film's place or impact in the current political situations that we live in. And I suppose that's relevant to France, to the US, to the UK. We all live in countries where the far right is growing. So I wondered maybe what everyone thinks. Maybe we start with Colette to talk a bit about what she might hope the film would have as an impact on young people.
J'y vais.
Il propose à Colette de parler la première, mais après, Lucie, oui, ce sera ton tour.
Alors Colette vient de me dire, elle propose à Charlie de répondre.
Oui,
Parce que
c'est moi qui demande.
Parce que elle dit.
In English, please, Leslie.
Oh, pardon, sorry. Wrong language. She's saying she'd like Charlie to reply because she's the one asking the question. How do you think the film is going to impact the world today?
That's a good question, and yeah, I like answering questions, so this is nice. I think that, well, I hope it has very significant impact because we now have limited numbers of people of Colette's age who have lived experience of the Second World War and of the Holocaust, who can talk about it as lived experience. And you know, one of the problems that we face, of course, is the denial that these things happened in the first place, even though the evidence is very much there. So I think having that original testimony is so powerful. And that's why, for me, it's so important that we put the film out on The Guardian and that we help publicize the film and get as many people to watch it as possible. Because that original evidence is just so important. And, you know, people are very motivated by emotion as well as facts. And I think this film is so perfect because it has the very real facts and the very real evidence, but it also has, you know, personal feelings and empathy and emotion. So I hope people will respond to that, because when you see this film, you know, you can't pretend that these emotions aren't real. You can't pretend that none of this happened. So that's what I hope anyway.
Charlie, can I just go off of something that you said there? I agree with everything you said. And in doing the film, I archivally, just, you know, looking for imagery, there's a film that I looked at that was presented at the opening of the Nuremberg trials. And it was about Nazi concentration camps. And it starts with affidavits, sworn affidavits from Hollywood filmmakers that they have looked at this material and it's real. And this was before this idea of fake news, you know, so at the time they knew that this would be something that people would have a very hard time accepting happen or would believe it. That they went to Hollywood filmmakers to say, you know, this is authentic, that they looked at every frame of this footage. So it's strange to me that we still have to, in a sense, do that, right? About this 75 years later. But I would agree with you that I think that that's really an important part of this because, as you say, the living memory is, you know, is slowly fading. And, you know, and Lucy even says in the film, she could speak more to this, but you know, she says that, you know, people, you know, think that this is so morbid. Why are you interested in this history? And it seems to me that she wants to make sure it's not forgotten.
Yeah, Lucy wanted to say something also. Peut-être, Lucie, tu peux dire ta réponse?
Oui, donc du coup, je pense que ce film, il est important pour les jeunes générations. Du fait que les jeunes générations aujourd'hui, il faut se rendre, moi c'était la première fois que je rencontrais une personne qui avait vécu la Seconde Guerre mondiale et les jeunes générations d'aujourd'hui ce sont les dernières qui vont pouvoir rencontrer des témoins de cette période Et donc, on est un peu, en quelque sorte, les porte-paroles des derniers témoins. Donc, ce film, c'est vraiment l'image de la transmission et vraiment, c'est le dernier moment, enfin, la dernière période où on va pouvoir encore rencontrer des témoins, alors qu'après, on ne pourra plus. On devra seulement s'appuyer sur des témoignages, sur des témoignages qu'on a entendus, mais pas directs. C'est des témoignages qu'on a racontés à d'autres personnes après, en fait.
So, je traduis, puis après, si tu veux, tu pourras donner une autre idée. Okay, so just in few words, she says that for her generation, it's really important because this is the last generation who can hear living memory, living testimony. She says for her, it was the first time that she had met someone who actually lived World War II. And she believes that in her generation, this is the idea is that her generation, they are the last generation who will be able to, who are able to listen to living memory. And then after them, there will not be anybody to talk to the following generations, anybody who has actually lived World War II. So for her, it's really important that this film is talking to this generation, and maybe to promote the idea that they would, that people of her generation would talk to people who have lived the World War II and the resistance. J'ai oublié quelque chose, Lucie, peut-être la fin de ton idée?
Non, je pense que c'est bon.
Great. So we'll go on to another question. There's a few of them coming in now. So a question from Marcia Levy, which I think is a really relevant one here. In the film, Colette says that she and her family had no choice but to resist the Nazis. In light of the current political situation in the world today, with a rise in fascist thought, does Colette have a message to us today from her experience about the need to resist?
I also see a follow-up from Marcia about, you know,
sorry, yes.
Yeah, well, like, where do you find the courage?
Yeah. Sorry, like, how do you find the courage to face it up to horror and resist it?
Yeah,
that's the other bit of the question.
That's also something I would love to hear from Colette, you know, speak to.
Yeah.
Right. You know, where you find that courage.
Yeah.
Alors, il disait que dans le film, tu disais que tu n'avais pas le choix que de résister. C'était le seul choix. Et donc, aujourd'hui, face aux montées du fascisme dans le monde et des idées fascistes qui commencent à réapparaître, comment tu trouves la force pour résister et comment tu fais face à ces idées? Qu'est-ce que tu dirais?
Avoir le tempérament de résister à l'injustice. C'est comme venir au monde avec les yeux bleus. C'est inné et on ne peut rien contre ça.
She's saying having in your character the capacity to resist is the same as being born with blue eyes. It's part of who you are. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just there. It's just who you are.
Voilà. Où on se fout de tout et de tout le monde, mais je ne vois pas sur quoi ça débouche. Ou bien on a décidé de faire quelque chose dans sa vie, quelque chose de constructif.
She says either that or you just don't care about anyone and you carry on. But if you've decided you want to do something constructive with your life, then there's no other option.
D'ailleurs, je suis beaucoup plus fière de mes 4 mois à l'hôpital militaire Robert-Lyon, en plein, je vais dire charnier, que des années de résistance, où j'ai fait du travail de fourmi. Oui, enfin, si j'avais été prise, je serais morte, mais comme je n'ai pas été prise, j'appelle ça un travail de fourmi. Mais par contre, les 4 mois d'hôpital militaire de première ligne, oui, là, c'était très, très intense. Et de ça, je suis plus fière.
She's prouder of the 4 months she spent in the military hospital in Bayeux, Robert-Lyon, than in the small pieces of work, the small contributions she made to the resistance. She said, perhaps had I been fully enrolled in the resistance, I might not be here to tell the tale. And so the work that she did were little pieces of work, but she is very proud of the 4 months which she spent in the hospital looking after and helping to take care of the soldiers who came in terrible states of for her, those 4 months are more important than the time she spent in the resistance.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So, yes, go on, Elise.
Sorry, I interrupt this because I know that Lucy has to leave in 10 minutes because she's in a boarding school and she has a tight schedule. Thank you, Lucy, for giving us your time. But maybe if you have questions for her, it would be would be now, basically.
Yeah, so I'll jump in and ask a question. Obviously, the film was filmed a while ago, and I wondered if you could talk about the research and the study that you've done since in this space.
Lucie, donc maintenant le film il a été fait un certain temps passé et Charlie se demande si ce que tu as fait depuis, à la fois dans tes études, tes recherches, mais aussi dans ce que le film t'a apporté.
J'ai pas tout saisi.
Ah, je recommence. Quelles sont les suites du film pour toi en termes de tes recherches, de tes études, mais aussi dans ce que le film a pu t'apporter personnellement?
D'abord, le film, ça m'a permis d'aller à Dora. Donc, c'était la première fois que j'allais dans un camp de concentration nazi, mais on l'a dit tout à l'heure. Tu traduis ou je continue?
It was the first time that the film allowed her to go to for the first time to a concentration camp. It was important for her.
Ensuite, le film, ça a d'abord été une notice biographique que j'ai écrite pour le livre des 9000 déportés de France passés par Dora, dirigé par Laurent Thierry. Et donc le film, ça a été la continuité. On a pu, la continuité, le livre permet de transmettre aussi, et le film, ça permet de transmettre aussi la même histoire, mais d'une autre manière.
Est-ce que je peux dire en parallèle?
Oui.
So what she says is that in parallel, she's been writing the notice, which is the biography of Marin-Catherine in the dictionary of the 9,000 deportees that were working in Dora. And that this dictionary has just been published. So for her, it's like it's two work in parallel that were intertwined.
Et en plus, il y a 3 semaines, on a remis le dictionnaire à Colette. Donc du coup, la sortie, le film qui est sorti, que j'ai vu, la remise du dictionnaire à Colette, la Stolperstein pour rendre hommage à Jean-Pierre à Bretteville, ça a tout, qui boucle toute l'histoire, qui boucle un peu mon travail que j'ai commencé. L'histoire de Jean-Pierre, j'ai découverte il y a 2 ans, donc ça fait 2 ans que je travaille sur l'histoire de Jean-Pierre et ça boucle tout.
She's been working on Jean-Pierre's story for 2 years now, and the film plus the dictionary. Plus also that she actually the dictionary that she had the opportunity and she was really happy to offer to Colette recently in last week, I think, and together with also she talked about the Stolperstein, which is an object
a commemorative stone.
Yeah, voilà. A memory stone that has been, which has the name Marin-Catherine on the engraved
on the stone.
Voilà, and it's now it has been set in front of the house where Colette and Jean-Pierre and her family used to live in Normandy when Jean-Pierre was still alive. So there's these three the film the dictionary and the Stoppelstein, the memory stone, that is now available for the public walking, passing by the house of Colette and Jean-Pierre, is the whole, it's the expression of 2 years of work for Lucy that comes to an end.
Cool, thank you very much. And yeah, I wasn't really aware of the stones before Alice and Anthony told me about them, but I think it's such a wonderful idea. Maybe we can just ask another question to Lucy, which is to ask like how she feels watching the film and how she feels seeing herself on screen like this, you know, being very vulnerable as well as very strong. I wondered if she could speak to that.
Lucie, tu comprends? Tu veux que je traduise?
C'est ce que j'ai ressenti la première fois que j'ai vu le film.
Oui, et puis qu'est-ce que ça te fait de te voir aussi vulnérable et en même temps aussi forte à l'écran?
Quand j'ai vu la première fois, le film, je savais encore, je me rappellerai toujours des moments difficiles que j'ai vécu avec Colette à Dora. Et quand j'ai vu le film la première fois, j'ai revu, non, ça se dit pas ça. Revécu. Une deuxième fois ces moments difficiles, surtout la première fois. C'était la première fois que je le voyais.
Tu peux traduire?
Oui.
So she said she will never forget the moment where she was in the camp with Colette. It's engraved in her mind. But the first time she saw the film and on screen, she did live again these moments.
Et la deuxième partie de la question, c'est
vulnérable et forte à la fois.
Forte, je sais pas, mais vulnérable. Je sais que je suis quelqu'un de sensible, donc je savais qu'il allait y avoir des moments aussi difficiles, mais je pensais pas que ça allait être aussi difficile pour moi en fait.
So she's not sure about strong, Charlie. She says strong, I'm not sure. Vulnerable, probably. I'm very sensitive. And she expected that there would be difficult moments when she embarked on the project, but she did not imagine it would be as difficult, as emotional.
If I can just come in, because I think it's important, you might want to hear what Colette was just saying to me. Obviously, it was very, very strong emotions for her. And she says, I feel as if it's sticking with me now. She said it took me 40 to 50 years to forget all that period. And that has brought it all back. So now, because of that experience, she's living with it, although she had spent 40 to 50 years trying to forget.
Yeah, which is an amazing outcome for a documentary to have that impact on someone's life.
But I mean, but we, you know, we all benefit from that, right? I mean, all of us. I mean, it's sort of, you know, I think a lot of times about these as like sort of the ripples that, you know, go out in a pond when you throw like a rock or something in there, right? Sort of, it's just out there now. And it'll continue to go. So we have, you know, really to thank Colette for making the decision to sort of say, okay, I'll go through this again, so that it can be out there. So that's also a thank you, Colette, for that.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I have a lot of thanks as well. I think
Colette was just saying that when the ripples come back the way, it's called the Doppler effect, and it hits you straight here.
Sorry, I just want to say also thank you to Colette, because she said I was a bit responsible, and when I know that it has been so, it has made her wound open again, and of course, I'm a bit afraid that of the consequence. But what I want to say again and again is that
Et elle dit, forcément, je me pose des questions quand tu dis que ça a réouvert une blessure.
I hope that with this film we convey properly your strength, and that this will be given to the generations, to our children, who will have to show their strengths as well.
Oui. She said,
Sorry?
Oh, I think
yes, you're right, and I hope the young people will find the strength that I had.
Cool. I think we got that. And the film does give you strength, and that's really wonderful. So we're nearly out of time, but there is one question that I think we'll try and get in, because it regards what I think, if my memory serves right, is the last line of Sync in the film, where Colette says, you're in the camp, and Colette says, who knows if birds are not a collection of all our sorrows, which I think is an incredible line and so beautiful and so sort of just so poetic and interesting. And I thought it might be nice if Colette could sort of expand upon that, on that thought maybe, and whether that was something that she had thought before, or whether that's something that came to her sitting there in the camp.
C'est une pensée qui t'est venue pendant que tu étais assise là dans le camp?
Non, c'est que lorsque nous étions dans le camp avec Lucie, les oiseaux chantent. Et quand on pense au carnage et qu'on voit les oiseaux, non pas indifférents, mais ils vivent leur vie, eux.
You say, when you think of us, when I was sitting in the camp with Lucy and the birds were singing, and you think of all the horrors that took place in that camp, you see the birds singing and living their lives.
En plus, c'est pas la génération des oiseaux qui survolaient le camp, ce sont les nouvelles générations qui chantent.
And she says it's not the generations of birds that flew over that camp when all those horrors were taking place. It's a new generation of birds.
Mais ils chantent pour l'avenir.
But they're singing for the future.
Pas pour le passé.
Not for what happened in the past.
Il faut pas l'oublier.
And we mustn't forget.
Surtout pas. Mais il faut le pardonner.
But you have to forgive.
Parce qu'on n'a pas le choix.
Because we don't have the option.
Et qu'entretenir la haine n'a jamais servi à rien, sinon à détruire les deux parties.
And if you stay with a feeling of hatred in your heart, you can never move forward, because hatred will destroy both sides. So hatred is not a solution.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Charlie, just before we the end, maybe we could ask Colette to show a uniform, and she has
yeah, that would be wonderful.
À vos ordres, chef. Ah, oui, Charlie, à vos ordres. Hop là. Est-ce que tu veux que je me mette à 5 minutes, Charlie? Je sais pas ce que c'est.
Allô? Oui, bonjour. Est-ce que vous pourriez rappeler d'ici 5-10 minutes parce que Colette est en train de faire un interview?
Alice, moi, il faut que j'y aille.
Oui.
Voilà, merci.
Lucy must go. So maybe we could free Lucy now, and then while Colette is.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. So Lucy's going to disappear, and we'll say goodbye to her.
Bye, Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy.
Bye.
Merci, Lucy. Merci. Bonne soirée.
Ok.
Merci.
So if Colette can show us her. Yeah.
Il faut peut-être que je me recule un peu.
Non, ça va, je pense. Can you see?
Yeah, we can see very well.
Correct. Il faut me remettre tous les boutons.
She said
Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, maybe.
She wants to be right, so she was closing her button on her jacket.
Of course.
Je s'appelait à Richard.
Charlie.
Charlie, oh, je ne vais pas passer loin. Oh, Richard, c'était notre photographe, une merveille.
Charlie, do you like it? Do you like? She's standing up for you.
I do, yeah. It's a genuine honor.
Il est très honoré.
Je suis ravie d'avoir rencontré, même si c'est virtuellement.
She's delighted to have met you, Charlie, even if it is only virtually.
Yeah, well, I'm very honored to meet you, truly. I think you're very heroic.
Il est très honoré de te rencontrer.
Mais,
Je pense que c'est très,
vous savez,
très
Charlie,
héroïque.
vous savez, Charlie, je suis très, très heureuse d'avoir eu autour de moi toute cette équipe. J'ai envie de dire merci, mais je vous signale quand même que dans le mot merci, il y a autant de syllabes que dans le mot amour. J'ai été entourée pendant une semaine de tant d'amour international, hein, sans frontières, que c'est peut-être ça qui m'a permis de survivre. Vous comprenez? Et de passer ce redoutable pèlerinage.
She's saying she thinks that she wants to thank the whole of the team, because she says, you know, in the French word merci, there are the same number of letters as in the French word for love, amour, and she felt that she was surrounded by so much love from the team when they made the film, that's what gave her the strength to go back and do this pilgrimage that she had been avoiding and refusing to do up until then. And she felt that she was surrounded by so much love. That's what gave her the courage and the strength to do it.
Wow, I mean, that's just so lovely. And I you know, just having just met the team behind the film, including Colette and Lucy, I'm very impressed by the strength and feeling in the team, and you can really see how such an amazing film has been created. I'm conscious of the time and how I think we need to finish now. Thank you to everyone for joining us. I think we've had around 30 people watching this, which is really great, and it's going to be on the Maysles website, I think, in a bit after this. So if you were here today, then please do tell other people to not only watch the film, but to watch this panel as well. Because I don't know about other people on the panel. This is my first time hearing Colette speak, and I'm so impressed with her poetry and her impressiveness, and it's just a real honor. And obviously Lucy as well, who's just had to leave us, but we extend our thanks to her for being wonderful too. Just a final word from me on what happens next in terms of The Guardian. We're hoping this film will come out around November on the Guardian website, and then our significant global audience will be able to see this film, which we're really excited about, but there'll be lots more information on that to come. I think that's probably all from all of us, but thank you so much to, well, Lucy, obviously, before she had to go, to Anthony and Alice for making the film and for setting up the screening with the Maysles team. But most of all, thank you to Colette for joining us today and for speaking so brilliantly and just inspirationally. So yes, I think we'll leave you, and I don't know if you want to say anything or if we just finish, but I'm guessing maybe we just, I know he's coming back. It was back over to you, Ine.
Extraordinary panel. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. And again, if you feel inclined to donate, you can do that at maysles.org.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie and Colette.
Have a good rest of the day, everyone. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Je vous embrasse tous.